Okay, let's get right into this. So basically, we were just doing this video, and unfortunately, as a result, something went wrong. The internet cut out. Now, the main thing that you have to keep in mind is that I just posted to the chat section essentially what my internet is: upload speed of 39.61 and download speed of 775. So it's not the internet. Unfortunately, something's going on with the program. This is direct into YouTube, and they are cutting my connection. So obviously, this happens when I do more of the spicy videos. So when I deliver this information to you, please remember, don't shoot the messenger. I know some of you get highly offended when I talk about benefits and potential interruptions related to them, but I'm sharing with you information that is available through the government websites about the struggles that they're having with paying you on time, the full amount, or all of the amount. So as a result of that, we're just going to get right into it. A lot of people got very angry when I used the term that essentially the Social Security Administration could potentially face a collapse if they fired or got rid of or let go a bunch of people. And as a result of that, the main thing that you have to keep an understanding of is that I use the word collapse. People got upset about it, but this guy, Martin O'Malley, who's the commissioner, who actually was the last full commissioner, not acting commissioner, basically went ahead and said, although you could call Colvin, you know what I mean? Carolyn Colvin, you could call her that, but she was brought in for like a small little period. He was the last full on commissioner. He said, basically, the Social Security Administration warns that proposed cuts to the agency could lead to entire system collapse, disrupting benefits payments to millions of Americans. Quote, ultimately, you're going to see the system collapse and there will be an interruption of benefits. Martin O'Malley, former Social Security Commissioner under the Biden administration, told CNBC. I think that will happen within the next 30 to 90 days. Okay, so we're talking about April is the earliest potential start date on the timeline as to when these benefits could start seeing interruptions. However, I want to make something very clear to you. Okay, the bottom line is that there are interruptions every single day at the Social Security Administration. What do I mean by that? An interruption in benefits is pretty simple. It just means something happens where you weren't getting the proper amount. You could be getting more than you should be. You could be getting slightly less. You could be getting a whole lot less. You could have them completely removed, or you could just get them late. And as a result, interruptions are happening all the time. Now, Commissioner Martin O'Malley, who is a Democrat, so I know some of you guys are going to really dislike him as a result of that, he said people should start saving now, he urged. Okay, so let's go through why he's saying that. Now, you know essentially that the Social Security Administration is in a tricky spot, right? Because you know that they can't get employees, they can't keep employees, and bottom line is the amount of buildup of Social Security applications, whether they're retirements, Social Security disability benefits, supplemental security income, could be an immigrant, etc. Those keep increasing in the backlog. So let's talk about real quick as to what's going on. The Social Security Administration produced basically a document from OIG, the Office of Inspector General, which was quite spicy. Record-breaking backlog increases improper payments by over $1 billion. When was this produced? This was created on August 8th of 2024, which was getting towards the end of Commissioner Martin O'Malley's presence at the SSA. Let me just read it to you real quick. This is an official document from the Office of Inspector General. That's the group that's right below the commissioner, filled with attorneys and their secret police and all that jazz, that reports directly to the commissioner of the Social Security Administration through the Inspector General. So high up level group inside the SSA. All right, less staff, increased workloads, decreased funding led to unprecedented backlog. Let me read it to you. For immediate release, as a backlog of payment actions affecting Social Security beneficiaries continues to mount, so does a rise in the agency's improper payments. As of February 2024, SSA's pending actions backlog reached an all-time high of 5.2 million pending actions, resulting in 1.1 billion in improper payments. Okay, so what is an improper payment? Right? It is a very simple thing. It is an interruption in benefits. It's where something went wrong. It's where you got too much, too little, didn't get your check at all, or you were paid late. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Not enough staff. And there's 5.2 million pending actions, resulting in 1.1 billion in improper payments from February until basically when this article was being produced, of course, which is, of course, August 08, 2024. Sorry, this was as of February 2024, SSA's pending actions. So bottom line is, up to that point, they had a real problem. According to the report issued by its Inspector General, reducing processing centers' pending actions, SSA's performance measure is to reduce the number of pending actions at processing centers, as the pending actions alone contribute to an increase in improper payments. However, SSA's backlog and pending actions goal have increased since fiscal year 2018. While SSA met its goals in 4 of the last 6 fiscal years between fiscal year 2018 through 2023, the agency's pending actions backlog increased by 44% from 3.2 to 4.6 million pending actions during that same time frame. So in other words, so just so that everybody is aware and has a full understanding of the math related to this. So in other words, what happened is basically there's a massive increase in the amount of improper payments that keep occurring. And as a result, a massive backlog of payments, which they can't climb. They just can't climb over the thing. And so as a result, you're seeing a lot of these improper payments going out, which is causing even more problems. Okay. As the backlog grows, many processing center PC pending actions remain unresolved for long periods of time, resulting in larger improper payments, including growing underpayments or increasing overpayments to beneficiaries. SSA cited unexpected staff reductions, increased workloads, and less than expected overtime funding that would have been used to pay employees to process more PC pending actions as explanation for the record-breaking backlog. Let me read that to you again, because this tells you exactly the reasons from inside the SSA as to why you might have an interruption in benefits. Okay? Unexpected staff reductions, increased workload. Obviously, there's more people, right, seeking benefits, people retiring every single day. And then basically the person that's working for the SSA has an increase of the amount of work that's put on their shoulders because they're maxing out the workload that they put on each employee. And less than expected overtime funding. They're not paying the employees to do a lot of overtime because they don't have the funding to pay them for overtime. That would have been used to pay employees to process more PC pending actions as explanation for the record-breaking backlog. Although only falling short of meeting its annual goal in fiscal year 2019 and 2022, there was no overall reduction in PC pending actions for the last 6 fiscal years. Quote, customer satisfaction has been an ongoing concern for the SSA. This report continues to highlight the urgency for the SSA to reach its pending actions performance goal and to ensure beneficiaries receive their proper payments as promptly as possible, said Michelle Anderson, Assistant Inspector General for Audit, serving as the Acting Inspector General for the SSA. Okay. The Office of the Inspector General made 3 recommendations to the SSA to consider for its backlog reduction. SSA agreed with those recommendations. All right. Next thing that you need to know over here. The tough necessary work to reduce disability wait times. This was directly released onto basically the Social Security website. This was basically produced by, at that time, Commissioner Martin O'Malley on September 6, 2024. Okay. Let's go through it real quick. We strive to provide the high level of service our customers expect, yada, 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 yada. Let's get to it. Consider this. As recently as 2018, SSA's operating budget represented 1.2% of its annual benefits it pays, an overhead rate much lower than insurance companies. At that time, DDS offices could make an initial determination on average in less than 4 months. I remember that. I remember going back to 2018 where between 3 to 6 months, we had a decision. Boom, boom, boom. Now it's like 12 to 19 months, depending on what part of the country you're part of, depending how many people are trying to go ahead and file benefits in that area, right? In that county, at that office, etc. Okay. Now, with that said, it's not like that anymore. It's a very different world now. So at that time, DDS offices could make an initial determination on average in less than 4 months. Today, though, SSA's budget has shrunk 2.94% of annual benefits, leading to challenges such as hiring and keeping state-level staff at DDS offices. As a result, turnaround times on initial determinations have roughly doubled. We want to work with Congress to secure the increases in the President's 2025 budget, which is a big step in the right direction to help SSA to improve service levels and reduce wait times. Now, some of you will say, of course, that President Biden was a hero of Social Security. I think everybody in the industry would kind of disagree with that because he did not promote, he did not cheerleader a lot of increasing the Social Security budget like he could have. He put in his notes that he wanted it, but then ultimately when he created these giant, massive bills to become law, some Social Security stuff got in, but by second rotation, like the second time that they went to look at it inside of all the committees, ultimately the first thing to get kicked were fixes that would have helped the Social Security Administration. So was Social Security on the plate? Yeah, for a very, very short time at the very beginning, and then boop, it was the first thing kicked off the plate when it came to actually passing those bills into law. In total, over the past 4 years, Congress has funded SSA's operating costs at a level almost $3 billion below budget requests. This underfunding, which began in 2018, led to an increase in pending disability claims by 94%, a processing backlog jump of 60%, and a tripling in the time it takes to answer calls on our 800 phone number. That's why, since joining the SSA 9 months ago, Commissioner Martin O'Malley, I've made reducing disability processing times one of the agency's top 3 customer support priorities. Now, I'm just going to go through essentially what he was essentially doing so far. The agency this year, and this is what he did, and then we're going to go into what the new commissioner is doing, Lee Dudek, with President Biden, with President Trump, and of course Elon with DOGE. All right, so far back during Commissioner Martin O'Malley, they deployed teams from SSA to help DDS offices in states in greatest needs of help. Okay. So they took employees from different spots of the SSA and put them into DDS positions. And I remember that too, because I remember talking with DDS reps. One phone call I'd have, the DDS rep was super new, didn't really know what they were doing, which is fine. I mean, that's how it works. When you're new to a position, you don't always know what you're doing. And then I'd have another phone call right after that, and I could talk to the person like I was talking to a judge. They knew exactly what was going on, what needed to be fixed. Here's the issue. Here's the thing. Cool. We're good to go. Next thing, establish partnerships with DDS offices with low attrition rates and high performance to help other states. They were trying to figure out how to keep employees. Expanded the national pool of medical consultants to help DDS offices with case reviews. So you know how there's people that review your claim that are, doctors that you never see, and then there's doctors that you do see. They keep having a hard time finding people to do all these CE appointments and basically medical consultant reviews, because bottom line is they don't pay that much to the doctors. So they got to do a ton of them, which makes them tend to be a bit biased, pro SSA, anti-claimant, because they have to see so many people. Reduce the look back period from 15 years to 5 years that applicants must provide and decision makers must consider regarding the past relevant work experience of an applicant. So, when you apply for disability benefits nowadays, they don't look at your past 15 years of work because nobody knows what the hell they did 15 years ago. They only look at the past 5 years. Republicans want to go ahead and change that to 10 years. I don't think they'll ever be able to. I don't think they're going to go ahead and get the support for that. But the bottom line is 5 years is working. It also cut down a lot of processing time for everybody, the client, the SSA, their attorneys. Next one. Enacted a change that allows the DDS office and beneficiaries to use a medical decision from a previous SSA disability program, SSDI or SSI, to also be accepted for DDS decision-making, just hybrid allowances. They said you were disabled, then they're going to go ahead and improve it based off of that. Increase the use of new platform called IMAGEN that quickly analyzes claimants' medical records to help DDS offices make adjudications. More than half the cases now use this platform, double the rate from a year ago. It's one of the 23 AI programs that they have reading through all of your records, not just for people who want to be found disabled, but also people who they are essentially reviewing to see if they are still disabled. Okay, even under difficult funding circumstances, the agency is seeing some positive signs of these efforts. Let me read through them real quick. That way you know what's going on. The agency has already reached on October 1st, 2024, a goal of processing more than 92% of our oldest cases. Initial claims and pending status have dropped by over 70,000 since mid-June. The average age of an initial disability claim is pending status is down nearly 10 days since July. For 11 consecutive weeks, DDS offices have now closed out more initial cases each week than they have received. All right, bottom line is they've done a lot of stuff. Commissioner Martin O'Malley was successful with a lot of ideas. He was going in the direction of, we have to go ahead and fix this. We need to add more employees. We need to have more people. We need to make the program better for the person applying for the benefits, because most applicants worked and paid into this system for a very, very, very long time. So they're going to be pissed. They're going to be very angry when they can't get access to their benefits. Now, I want to go through some news releases. That way you guys kind of understand exactly what's going on at the SSA, so you understand the direction of where things are going when it comes to the future of the Social Security Administration. Let's go through it real quick. All right, now real quick, this was a news release released essentially on February 28th, 2025 from the SSA. Consistent with recent executive orders, bottom line is Commissioner Lee Dudek is working with President Trump to do what President Trump wants. They're going to reduce their amount of staff from 57,000 employees down to 50,000 employees. So they're going to cut 7,000 employees. The rumor of 50% reduction is false. So they're going to cut around 7,000 employees of the 57,000 total. Okay. They're doing this because he's trying to go ahead and find ways to save money and go ahead and make the core parts of the SSA do the core parts. What do I mean by this? You'll see in prior news releases directly before this one was created that essentially they were shutting down entire departments, categories of things, etc. Department of Transformation, the department that handled basically handing out grants from the SSA for people to innovate for the SSA. The rumor was that basically, some of these grants are being handed out to nonprofits that were essentially just politically motivated. And I don't doubt it. I mean, I really don't doubt it. You saw a lot of LGBTQ trans activist stuff that was going on that really didn't have a lot to do with the Social Security Administration. but still their rights need to be recognized. But at the same time, this whole thing, just a meat cleaver, full cutoff, no more grants, done, no more, right? So that was, bottom line is they're getting rid of 7,000 employees. Bottom line is this, it's massive. It's a massive cleaver, right? So that's that one. Next one, March 3rd, 2025, news release. Okay. So we're getting to the more recent days because remember, today we're March 5th. March 3rd. Okay. Social Security identifies hundreds of millions of dollars in savings. The Social Security Administration continues to make good on President Trump's promise to protect American taxpayers from unnecessary spending while continuing to ensure it delivers on its mission. Quote, for too long, the SSA has operated on autopilot, which I don't disagree with. I think Commissioner Lee Dudek is on point with this. The SSA has had to go through more of a rebirth, your classic situation of review and then see what you need and see what's working and then focus that. But Acting Commissioner of Social Security Lee Dudek said, we have spent billions annually doing the same things the same way, leading to bureaucratic stagnation, efficiency, and a lack of meaningful service improvements. It is time to change just that. The agency has thus far identified over $800 million in cost savings or cost avoidance for fiscal year 2025 in areas of payroll, information technology, contracts and grants, and space savings, i.e. real property and other savings through new common sense approaches to printing, travel, and purchase card policies. So in other words, some of these employees are going to be working from home. In other words, it's that, or they're the employees are going to have to report to this office and that instead of that office, or they don't need a building that's that big, one of those things. Because, now if they have people essentially not coming in without an appointment, that's going to cut down on a lot of people who are just like, hey, I'll go right down to the SSA local field office and, get my thing taken care of. Now you have to have an appointment. And it usually takes around 2 weeks to get something scheduled in. Here's the list of savings. And which, just a side note though, I really do appreciate Commissioner Lee Dudek, Acting Commissioner Lee Dudek, for essentially being up to date with press releases. If you go look at essentially press releases on behalf of the Social Security Administration or like videos made, videos posted, things like that, going forward, a lot of commissioners have been really shitty at keeping us up to date as to what was actually internally going on with the SSA. He has not been shitty about that. He's been really good about press release. What's going on? This is the direction. Here's where we're going next. So I really appreciate that aspect of this because we have direction from him. Some commissioners were really bad about saying anything, doing anything. It's like they lived in a bubble and never told us anything. That's not the situation we have with the new commissioner, the new acting commissioner, Lee Dudek. Okay, so here's the list of savings that they've created so far. Payroll froze SSA and disability determination services hiring and drastically reduced overtime by $550 million. Now, that is going to directly cause interruptions in benefits for you guys that are recipients. So that is going to directly equate to either you're not getting paid the right amount, you're not getting your benefits at all, or you're getting paid late. So just realize that payroll freeze, not hiring any new people, that's going to directly equate to more of those numbers. Information Technology Systems ITS budget. An ITS budget reduction of $150 million by canceling non-essential contracts and identifying reductions in other ITS contracts. So just kind of understand that when you take out $150 million, there were things in there that they didn't need, of course, but at the same time, if there's a technological problem, and this is what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is there will be people inside the SSA, both lower, middle management, upper management, stuff like that, who are not a fan of Donald Trump, or are not a fan of Elon, who are not a fan of the new movement and changes to the SSA. My concern is that they might try to do something with the actual IT systems. And as a result, you might see blocks of people just not getting their benefits on time. Something doesn't get paid properly, something doesn't happen properly, because the people on multiple tiers might agree politically with each other and cause, a collapse, a block of individuals that were supposed to receive benefits and actual collapse. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's a probability in this kind of environment situation. Non-ITS budget, they had a 70% reduction in travel. That's 10 million. And then contracts and grants, they had, grants terminated. So they granted basically 15 million back in the day. They've terminated those. No more grants. The grants were really meant to be used for, essentially innovations for the SSA to be able to save money in the future, get rid of fraud, get rid of waste, etc. Real property, planned non-public facing usable square footage reductions, achieved savings to date of 270,000 USF, so we're talking about usable square footage. So they got rid of about 10.2 million there. Anticipated additional savings through EOY fiscal year 2025 is another 30,000 usable square footage of 1.5 million savings. Soft term lease terminations, over 60 lease terminations with assistance from the General Service Administration, GSA. 4.0 million in annual rent savings once terminations are complete. Most sites are co-located, others are non-public facing, consolidations, or pre-planned closing. So basically, they're going to be closing more offices going forward into the future. So it's pretty spicy stuff. Guards plan to implement protective security officer staffing model and policy for field offices. Estimated 30 million beginning in fiscal year 2025. So plan to implement protective security officer staffing model. So we don't know exactly what they're going to be doing, but they know people are going to be pissed. So it looks like guards are going to be, dealing with some funding right there. So, just be aware that they're building up, the defense mechanism for people being upset about what's going on. Printing and postage made SSA 1099 and SSA 1042 notices available online. So, like getting this stuff in the mail, you're not going to be getting a lot in the mail from the SSA in the future. And 5.4 million customers opted out of paper notices, 3 million cost avoidances. They're just ramping up the system where you get less and less and less things through the mail, where it's essentially them using less postage. So, in the future, you're just going to have to use your My Social Security online account. Centralized printing, contracted with vendors to centrally print and mail notices rather than having frontline staff print and mail them locally. 28 million in work year savings. So again, reduction in printing. You're not going to receive as much in the mail. Travel and purchase card policy, revised card policy to save millions in purchase card obligations. Social Security remains committed to identify more ways to save taxpayer money and implementing more solutions that free up frontline employees to help more customers. All right, now we're getting to March 4th. So today's March 5th. Yesterday, this is what they released, okay? So the Social Security pays billions of dollars in retroactive payments, okay? Actions support the Social Security Fairness Act. Now remember, Biden passed way too late in the game for any effect on voting the Social Security Fairness Act. And he had to do that because, the head of the Fraternal Order of Police went down to Mar-a-Lago. Trump said he would pass it if he got elected. So Biden had to pass it because, the Democrats have two main things against the Republicans. Number one, they got the race card. Number two, they have three main things. They have the race card, which they usually use African Americans. They have the basically the Jewish card, so that's where they get major funding, and then they have Social Security, and those are the three leverage points against the Social Security against the Republican Party. And so the bottom line is, when it comes to this whole situation, they can't allow the Republicans to look good when it comes to Social Security benefits, because then that hurts the Democrats with, using it as leverage to try and get more votes when the big elections come up. Okay, so as Biden passed the Social Security Fairness Act, but he passed it and signed it into January of 2025, way late in the game. So now they released under Biden's group that, essentially it would be like a year before they could start doing these process payments, and that was a real shock to people. People were like, what the hell? How could this be? This is absolutely terrible. And so as a result of that, now, right, the Republicans are realizing, hey, wait, one of the three main things that they use against us, right? African Americans, the Jewish population, the donations, and then, of course, basically the Social Security benefits, right? One of the three things that the Republicans know that the Democrats can use against them, the Republicans are finally waking up being like, oh, buddy, we might need to take, a notice here and pay a little bit more to the SSA when it comes to attention as they reduce significantly staff. So it's just like, maybe they didn't fully learn the lesson here. Maybe they should have not touched this program as much. But again, what we're going through is a massive audit with the federal government. All right, let me read it to you. March 4th, official news release from the SSA. The Social Security Administration today shared its significant progress to quickly implement the Social Security Fairness Act. Through March 4th, 2025, SSA has already paid 1,127,723 people more than $7.5 billion in retroactive payments. And remember, a lot of these individuals are people who have a dual pension. They spent part of their life paying into, some pension that wasn't the SSA's, FICA taxes, and then another part of the life they paid in FICA taxes to the SSA. Okay. The retroactive payments are the result of the repeal of the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. The average retroactive payment so far is $6,710. So, if you're sitting there being like, well, I'd really love an additional $6,710, Remember, these are for people who usually were teachers, sheriffs, police, some are firefighters, people that fit into that kind of public service, or people that were, working abroad, etc. Quote, President Trump made it very clear he wanted the Social Security Fairness Act to be implemented as quickly as possible, said Lee Dudek, acting commissioner of Social Security. Quote, we met that challenge head on and are proudly delivering for the American people. The WP and GPO provisions reduced or eliminated the Social Security benefit for over 3.2 million people who received pension based on work that was not covered by Social Security, a non-covered pension, because they did not pay Social Security taxes. The agency continues to pay remaining retroactive payments and is ready to begin paying higher monthly benefit payments beginning in April for people's March benefits. So one of the things they have to keep in mind, why people are kind of pissed off about the Social Security Fairness Act, is because it also significantly reduces the amount of money in the trust funds going forward. And the trust funds will essentially run out, somewhere between 6 to 12 months sooner. And that means that instead of 2033, 2032 is essentially what we're looking at for when the trust funds run out for the retired people. And then retired people get somewhere around 22-ish, 25% less per month with their benefits, which will cause massive, massive, massive problems. I mean, you're going to be seeing a lot of elderly people like having to like downgrade their house, downgrade their mortgage, downgrade their life. Okay. Now, next thing, this was released today, March 5th. Okay, now we're at March 5th today. All right. News release, Social Security addressing aged records. The Social Security Administration today shared its significant progress in identifying and correcting beneficiary records of people 100 years old or older. The data reported in the media represented people who do not have a date of death associated with the record. So essentially people that are really old, but there's nothing on record that shows when they passed away. Now, some people will argue in the comments and they'll just fight, put the thing in the comments that those people, they obviously passed and blah, 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 and so on and so forth, and da, 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 da. Yeah, whatever, fine. And they'll say, oh, and, this place they're required to send in a notification that the person has passed and da, 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 da. Yeah, okay, just to be clear, there's lots of ways to game this system and still get a check out of the SSA. So if you're sitting there going like, this system is perfect, there ain't no system at the SSA that's even in like the middle area of it works well and fraud can't occur to it. There's so much capable fraud against the SSA on all levels that, if you're sitting there going like, this system is perfect, there's no way. For people who are at the very lower end of the SSA, the very intro part of it, not to say in a negative way, they're only allowed to input certain things in the machine. But as you go up to, managers, more, higher level managers, more senior staff, then you're getting to the lower commissioners and the commissioner. As you get higher up, they have complete custom control over what their programs do and what they can pay out and what's happening with them. So you remember, there's potential for a lot of fraud here, but there's also potential for a lot of waste as well. So let's go through this real quick. All right. So we are, quote, steadfast in our commitment to root out fraud, waste, and abuse in our programs and actively correcting the inconsistencies with missing dates of death. Quote, I think, and this is from Lee Dudek, the new commissioner, I thank President Trump for highlighting these inconsistencies during his speech last night to a joint session of Congress. So just to be fair, like I've said before, I think one of the nice things about Commissioner Lee Dudek is that we're getting a lot of transparency as to what the SSA is doing. Do I think the SSA should be firing 7,000 people? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're going to be seeing interruptions and benefits, all kinds of problems as a result of this. Now, we've already talked about some basics here. We know April is when it potentially could start. We don't have an end date as to when it could get better. Okay. But we're going to go through Frank Bisignano and how he'll be changing the program in the not too distant future. Please also remember to like and subscribe. There's only 179 likes. We go through the most recent information. We go through what's happening. I tell you from a legal perspective, what I'm noticing, what I'm seeing. I mean, this is really important information to you. Please consider to like and subscribe because this channel, obviously, I think it deserves it. I think if you like the information, you should consider it. All right, let's keep rocking and rolling through this. All right. The agency follows long-established program integrity initiatives that identify people who have a higher likelihood of being deceased due to their age or incomplete death reports. For example, SSA receives data from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services of individuals who have not used Medicare Part A or Part B for 3 or more years. Now, remember how we've gone through cases where their secret police, their OIG, and their CDI units investigate people? And if it's an older person and they haven't used their Medicare or Medicaid in 3 years, then what happens is they automatically go onto an OIG list for review. Meaning, like, if you don't go to the doctor and you're that old, then they know there's a problem. They know there's a problem, okay? All right, let's keep rocking and roll. So SSA uses the data as an indicator to select and prioritize cases of individuals aged 90 or older who are currently in pay status and living in the United States to determine continued eligibility for Social Security benefits. The agency attempts to conduct an interview with these individuals to verify they are still alive. If the agency identifies someone is deceased, it immediately stops payment and reports any suspicions of fraud to SSA's Office of Inspector General. That was the release today by the commissioner that was put in by Trump to replace Commissioner King, who basically fired Commissioner Lee Dudek, who is now the current commissioner. Now, I want to go through something real quick, okay? Because this is going to go more into timelines of things. But what you need to keep in mind is that the Social Security Administration is trying to significantly reduce its workforce by offering a lot of plans, retirement options, things like that to get people to choose to leave the SSA. As a result of that, right, you're going to be seeing individuals who have been there longer showing preference towards leaving. And you've already seen that. There's a significant amount of regional commissioners, right? The people that are down a step from the commissioner of the SSA, but the regional commissioners, those individuals, a lot of them have already stepped out and said, no, thanks. I don't want to be part of this agency anymore. I am leaving. And that's because the benefits offered to them as options are very, very good. That means you're going to have a lot of people who haven't worked for the SSA sitting there going, well, the leave options aren't very good for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and stay because what other job do I have as an option? Now, I want to show you something. Over here, the Social Security Administration, major management and performance challenges during fiscal year 2024, they released essentially a report that said their number one thing on there was managing human capital. They had a problem where they could not hire enough people and keep enough people. So at an agency that oversees 72 million individuals and their benefits, which is like a ridiculous amount, imagine only 59,000 people, 58,000, 56, 59,000, 58, and now we're down to 57, and now they're about to cut 7,000 people. Imagine only having 50,000 people work on benefits of 72 million recipients for complex programs. Imagine that few of people having to work on that many millions of people's files. So the bottom line is you have to then gauge, okay, how many interruptions are actually likely to occur as a result of this? Well, if you go over here to the DDS staffing levels and the employee attrition rates, okay, you're going to see here 12,592, 12,791, 13,000, 12,000, 13,000, 12,000. The thing they cannot afford to lose are DDS personnel that adjudicate these claims. Now, what's going to happen over the next 6 months? The amount of time, the expectation of having a disability claim adjudicated is going to vastly increase. Now, the counter argument to that for Lee Dudek and Commissioner Frank Bisignano in the future being a success is that they've got a lot of artificial intelligence technologies, 23 of them, that can scan a file, figure out what's good, pull what's bad, and basically show good or bad for the file what's going on. Now, what's the problem with that? The AI programs are not going to be able to recognize as well when a doctor creates an improper medical writing. So the doctor will put into the writing, okay, the person has this issue, but then the doctor will also have sections of their report where they just copy and pasted information saying the individual had no issue with this. And then all of a sudden you've got a problem because now the artificial intelligence machine has a red flag that, they're going to have to figure out what to do with it with the coding of the machine and how it presents it to the DDS rep, the human that's adjudicating the system. So as a result, the AI systems are going to help. It's going to help speed things up. It's going to replace a lot of employees. But you should expect that Social Security disability wait times for a disability applicant to go ahead and receive benefits, it's going to take a lot more time. There's no way around it. Even with artificial intelligence, even with 23 of these programs working, it's just going to take more time because they don't have the personnel to do what they need to do. And then, of course, we have the attrition rates. Both attrition and more limited hiring resulted in SSA and DDS having fewer employees in fiscal 2024 than they did in fiscal 2023. They're at a 50-year low of employment, okay? For example, one senior regional leader reported that while she lost over 650 employees in fiscal year 2023, she was only authorized to hire 259 employees in fiscal year 2024. While the attrition rates for SSA and the state DDSs have decreased in the last couple of fiscal years, the attrition rate for DDSs in fiscal year 2024 remained relatively high at over 11%. So what they're saying is, even before Trump got in, even before Commissioner Lee Dudek got into office, this was a situation, to be very fair, where, just to be really clear and very fair with this, they didn't have enough people, and the people that they were hiring, they couldn't keep. It was saucy, a very scary situation. All right, so I've shown you that. Now I want to show you another thing. There's a semi-annual report to Congress, right? And this report to Congress was done on October 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2024. It's a semi-annual one, okay? This was back when that Inspector General Gail Ennis was still in, okay? She had to step down because the senators got on her about going after potential whistleblowers. She stepped down, but, ultimately there was something going on there. Things weren't proven, but yada, yada. Just to help you guys understand, back to 2024, there were $184 million worth of question costs. Question costs include costs that we determined based on our audits, violated provision of law, regulation, contract, grant, cooperative agreement, or other agreement or document governing the expenditure of funds, were not supported by adequate documentation, or were unnecessary or unreasonable. So 184 million questionable costs existed that they knew about. Okay, funds put to better use. There were 82,927,445 funds that should have been put to better use. Funds put to better use are funds that SSA could use more efficiently if it took action to implement our recommendations. Okay. Persons referred to the U.S. Department of Justice for criminal prosecution, 648. Persons referred to state and local prosecutors for criminal prosecution. That's where the CDI units find people, disabled people, retired people abusing their benefits in some way, 145. Indictments of criminal information. This is where they indicted people, 244. This number includes indictments or criminal information filings per subject. It does not include subsequent or superseding indictments and or criminal informations for the same subject. Total allegations received during that period, that 1 year period, 150,412 allegations. Like when your neighbor calls in and says you're not disabled, right there. Okay. Imposter scam allegations, right? Okay, well, actually, sorry, this is that. That's 48,884. This figure represents the number of imposter scam allegations OIG received. That's where your neighbor calls in and says, I don't think they're disabled. I saw them riding an alligator. I saw them riding a Harley. I saw them riding a jet ski. I saw them riding a unicorn. The allegations may include scammers impersonating government employees or alleging Social Security related problems to steal money or personal information. OIG receives imposter scam allegations via multiple sources, including a dedicated online scam reporting form that requests detailed characteristics about the reported scams. 48,884 reports of potential fraud committed by not only healthy people doing stuff, but also people who are trying to scam other Social Security recipients. 278 prosecutions and convictions, task force 210, total subpoenas issued 1,159. The SSA office had, which that's why they're putting more guards and dealing with the whole guard situation, 513 safety and threats. Some of my clients were part of that, which is unfortunate. 1,045 administrative costs, 943 subjects with administrative actions, 211 unimplemented recommendations. Potential cost savings from unimplemented recommendations, 6,920,436,554. That's how much, 6.9, so basically $7 billion before Trump even got into office the second time, were recommended by OIG to go ahead and deal with to save money at the SSA. $7 billion. However, just to be fair, the counter argument here is that this was done by a Trump appointee when Trump was in the first time. Okay. Although, remember, they've been making these reports for a while. So let's go back to the base theme of this video. What do you need to know? The fewer the employees you have, the more likely your benefits are going to have a problem. Could be a technical problem where the machine makes a mistake. Could be an employee problem where they make a mistake and report something incorrectly. Could be a thing where, there's a sabotage inside the SSA, etc. I have the hot sheet over here talking about all the SSA people that they prosecuted who basically were, playing with benefits, stealing benefits, creating fake children, etc. And we're going to do a video specifically on that. The point that I'm getting at is, Commissioner Martin O'Malley is saying, look, could be 30 days, could be 60 days, could be 90 days. There's going to be somewhere down the line where you're going to be seeing more interruptions with your benefits. My points that I'd like to add to all of the information that you just learned about this entire subject is the following. Number one, okay, they are right now, because they put a whole thing where it's, in March, they're trying to figure out who's going to leave, who's going to stay, all that stuff. By April, you know, essentially that they're going to meet their mark on getting rid of essentially 7,000 employees. When that happens, a lot of the systems are not going to work as properly as they should because the errors that occur, the errors that build up inside their systems are not going to be dealt with quickly enough. Now, it's true that a chunk of employees are coming from these departments, Department of Transformation and stuff like that. It's true. But at the same time, you got to understand that there are core people that were essential to this program working the way it's supposed to who are now leaving the SSA. When you have core people leaving the SSA, things get scary because they were part of making the system work the way it's supposed to work. You know that I've talked about law. You know that I've talked about law when it's actually applied by attorneys, with judges, etc. There's the law, and then there's what we do in practice to go ahead and make the system work. And those two, what the law is and what we do in practice, are not always perfectly the same. They're similar, but they're not always perfectly the same. Those, regional commissioners, higher level managers, right? Those individuals, a lot of them are stepping down and moving away from the Social Security Administration. They don't want to be part of what's coming up. They're afraid of what's coming up. They're afraid of how their reputation is going to be affected with what's coming up. As a result of that, you can see a timeline where they're not going to have the employees that they'd normally have by April. Now, I think things, because a lot of the items inside the SSA are now more automated than they were in the past, because they now have all these artificial intelligence technologies, 23 of them, to continue to make the payments, review the cases, etc. But what I need you to understand is this, okay? When it comes to our timeline, 30 days, I don't think there's going to be a lot of interruptions or problems. So April, I think you'll be fine. But you will start to see when it comes to May, June, July. My belief is around July that you will start to see a lot more interruptions with your benefits, difficulty with problems. You're going to be seeing the 800 number trying to get a hold of the SSA become a very difficult task. Now, wait times to get somebody on the phone through the 800 number are going up again. And the reason why is because they don't have enough personnel to answer the phones. It's supposed to be around 30 minutes to an hour and a half. I'm getting a lot of reports from people that it's about 2 hours to 4 hours to get somebody on the phone. And the sad thing is that they don't have a system on the computer that allows people to go and quickly request an appointment at the local field offices. Now, as you know, there was a whole chunk of local field offices that were just shut down. Ryan Woodridge, thank you for the $2 donation. He asked, is Social Security program going broke in 90 days? No, the Social Security program is not going broke in 90 days. Okay. It's basically going even more red in essentially 8-ish years, which means that they're not going to be able to afford people what their actual benefits are supposed to be. Of course, the Democrats are proposing to raise the FICA tax cap so that the rich have to pay more. The rich who put the Democrats and the Republicans in office are never going to go with that. So they can scream and keep saying, make the rich pay their fair share, but they ain't never going to pay their fair share because they control our political system, both on the left and the right. If you're sitting there saying, hey, these Republicans, it's all led by billionaires. Yeah. Just remember, all the faces of the Democrats, all those politicians, they're all paid for by billionaires. So, there's no, oh, these guys are good and these guys are bad and these guys are good and these guys are bad. They're all funded by billionaires. Okay. And some of them have become very, very rich. I'm not saying Pelosi, who have essentially used their position to play the game, especially with stocks. Now, with that said, and I want you to understand this, the Social Security Administration, if it had been working as a situation where it took the money and had really incredible investors that held everything in a sovereign trust in the United States, it didn't go private, but it kept it in a sovereign trust, that would have been the best potential outcome. Now, people will argue that there was 9/11, there was 2008, there was things like that. Of course, absolutely. But can you imagine if you had talented people in the government actually invest the money properly instead of reinvesting it back into the federal government to pay for a lot of the BS that they were spending it on? The big problem, if you want to know what's the fix for the Social Security Administration, it's get it out of the hands of the government constantly changing leadership and put it into the hands of a side system of the government that basically treats it like it's its own massive vault that can't be affected, modified, changed by the current political stance. And it's just, over and over and over again. Here's the thing. You guys always question me as to why I liked Martin O'Malley as a commissioner. There's something that none of you talk about, nobody else talks about on the legacy news channels. And and there's another thing that I like about Lee Dudek as well. So I'm going to cover both of them. I'm going to cover the current acting commissioner and the last, basically big Biden commissioner. The reason I liked Commissioner Martin O'Malley was because he was always poor. I know what you're thinking. Well, that doesn't make any sense. If he were successful, he would not be, poor. He would have money. No. That's not how it works with Democrats. The way it works with Democrats is, basically they get massive funding and then they start building this big enterprise. And, they got stocks, they got bonds, they got a massive portfolio. They're creating books. They're doing, live television shows. They're getting paid. He has always consistently been the poorest dude present, which means the billionaires don't like him that push their billionaire agenda through the Democratic Party. So on the Democrat side, I've always liked him because he's been a poor schmuck like me. And that to me, from attorney to attorney, has always been an idea that essentially has been really incredibly important. Now, his statement to you guys was to save Star Fury. Yes. Thank you. Star Fury just did a $5 donation. I super appreciate it. She said, okay, so no, it's not necessarily she. It's the gentleman right there. Save. Please try to save. We are going through a fire in the forest at our offices. Okay, so just to kind of go along with that identity there. All right, the next video we're going to be talking about programs that exist for low-income individuals. We're going to be talking about what types of things you have to work towards categorically, from housing to food to clothing to basically utilities, etc. So we're going to be doing all of those things in the next video. But Star Fury looks like good-looking gent in the photo is essentially right on target with the most incredibly scary things about what's coming up. Now, like I said with Commissioner Martin O'Malley, who also said save, and that was amazing timing on that. He knows from working at the SSA as a future presidential hopeful that the SSA is about to go through shocking, if you were to take the body of the SSA and just shake it as hard as you could, shocking, just difficult times with processing the amount of information they have to go through. There's going to be a lot of errors. And while people will argue that the systems are automated, they're wrong. They're not automated enough to that point with artificial intelligence to be able to fix it at this level. They're not going to be able to keep up. Would they be able to do this 5 years from now with artificial intelligence being 5 years down the road? Yeah, they would, but it's not there yet. And so as a result, right, you have to learn how to protect yourself and deal with what's coming up. Now, here's the Republican plan, the model going forward. So basically, they got rid of Commissioner King. They put in Commissioner Dudek. Commissioner Dudek communicated directly with Elon. Commissioner King didn't like it. Commissioner King basically worked towards the termination of Dudek. Dudek got terminated. Elon was pissed, told Trump. Dudek got put then as the commissioner, the leader of the SSA. Commissioner Lee Dudek now is going to try and get rid of waste and fraud, which means massive slicing and dicing of the programs at the SSA. He will likely be doing this for the next month and a half to 2 months. We don't know exactly when Frank Bisignano will be brought in, but we know overlap time could be 2 weeks, could be a month, could be 2 months, could be potentially 3 months, but somewhere around that period. Frank Bisignano, because remember, they always plan a date and then they move it, and then they got to do this and then they move it. We know Frank Bisignano will be coming in then. Frank Bisignano is the purpose of Trump to integrate massive new systems, artificial intelligence systems, single OS systems, operating systems, to get rid of all these different systems that don't communicate with each other. If Trump can pull it off, and I'm not saying he can, I am not saying he can, but if he can pull it off, he has the first commissioner come in to get rid of a lot of the stuff that's there. Massive cutting. He brings the next guy in to rebuild it. That's why their plan is to do a 20% increase in funding to the Social Security Administration. So his goal by the end of this year, so essentially, right before 2026, is to have a tough period of time for the SSA and then come into 2026 with it having a newly restructured system. So if you guys have ever seen like an audit, although this would be like an earthquake fire audit, if you've ever seen one of those, that's what essentially is going on at the SSA. Now, at the same time, they're putting out reports, different news stations, etc., all kinds of stuff. I think there's a new one that just came out just recently, like a couple hours ago. What is it? The VA office to terminate, I think it was 80,000 people. Let me see if they pulled that down. 5 hours ago, AP News. Trump administration plans to cut 80,000 employees from the VA. Reuters also reported it 4 hours ago. So bottom line is we've seen 7,000 individuals on the cutting block of the SSA. Will they cut more? I don't see how they could, but they might. And every person they cut, that's part of the core model. Obviously the grant side, that's not going to have a huge effect on you in an immediate sense. Obviously on the Department of Transformation, that's not going to have an effect on you in any material sense, right? But what's incredibly, incredibly important here that you have to understand is that every person they cut, that's part of the core machine of, granting the benefits they're supposed to, denying the benefits they're supposed to, increasing or reducing the benefits that they're supposed to. Every person they cut increases the amount of errors that you'll see. So on a timeline, I don't think you're going to see a lot of cluster bleeping at essentially the beginning point of this whole thing, which is right when April starts, when they, know that they've gotten rid of most of the stuff that they want to. When you go from April to May, and May to June, and May to July, you're going to be seeing a lot of those errors inside their machines add up. A lot of the problems with people processing claims add up. And then when you get to around July, you're going to be seeing them completely just overflooded, overloaded with problems that they can't fix. You'll then go through essentially August, September, October, November, December, with Frank Bisignano taking over and trying to build new systems into it by bringing on a lot of the people from the private industry that were in banking to redo the internals of the SSA to make it more efficient. Now, if Trump is successful, he will have completely revitalized the SSA to be a slim, trim, very, very, very aggressive, administration. I believe that the culture of the SSA will massively change, especially when it comes to disability benefits, where they'll be less likely to approve, less likely to continue to push forward approving people unless they have really, really, really severe, really, really, really marked impairments. Now, I will point this out to you. You go back essentially 15 years, you go back 20 years, you get a lot of people who went on disability benefits who would definitively not be found disabled nowadays. You get a lot of people back then who make comments like, well, I have to receive my benefits and still be able to ride my Harley. I have to be able to receive my benefits and still enjoy my jet ski. I have to be able to receive my benefits and still ride my horse and still work my farm and da 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 da. People found disabled nowadays can't do any of that stuff. They can't do anything close to that stuff. So the reality is the culture of approval is largely changing. And the way you do that is by pressuring the DDS reps toward also the administrative law judges and the AA judges, the administrative appellate judges. That's what I call them. People call them something else. But the point is AAJs. They pressure them to look at essentially the statistical relevance of how many people or how much people cost over the lifespan of the benefits that they receive. Just to make something clear, if you look at younger people who receive benefits over the great expanse of a full lifetime, that's a really, really expensive person. If you grant benefits for somebody who's much older, then you don't have to pay them that much because they're not alive for that long. So what the SSA is doing is preferencing essentially much older people to be approved and taking away the option of people being found as easily, disabled, etc., for the younger generations. And they've been doing this a long time. It's just the culture's making it more aggressive. And they've been doing them through what's called grid outs. And, essentially grid outs, you're 50 to 55, 55 to 60, 60 plus, you're more likely at each 5-year gap to increase, the likelihood of being found disabled. And so the idea here is they essentially, from what I'm hearing, want to change that so that the 50 to 55-year category becomes the 55 to 60-year category. And that's all part of a plan to increase retirement so that you can't basically access retirement until you go farther up and become older and older. I think that the SSA is going to be going through a lot of massive changes. I'm nervous, obviously, as a Social Security disability attorney. I want to do a super thank you to Randy Dommel for doing the $8 donation. I really appreciated that, and that's absolutely amazing. Also, Scott Mayhem, you are amazing with the little dancing pair. That's awesome with the $20 donation. It's absolutely amazing. I'm using funds basically to set up an interview desk, and then also basically to get Shadow his surgery, which is a total hip replacement, which is massive. Like for 3 months, he's not going to be really doing much. But the point is, I'm using funds to build the channel to tell you guys what's actually going on and give you the side that's not being published by the Democrats, by the Republicans, by the acting SSA personnel. I want to give you the side that's not really being brought forward. And so as a result of that, as somebody who lives in this industry, like, sun up to sundown, and then after sundown, I'm worried because the timeline, as it progresses, if Trump can't pull this off, yeah, they're going to cut a lot. Okay. We know that that's going to cause a lot of internal errors, technological errors, claimant errors, we know that's going to have a lot of issues. If Frank Bisignano is not able to, as the new commissioner, come in and hyper automate this system, you could be facing some sort of internal collapse with being able to process claims. What does an internal collapse look like? It looks like disability claims for an initial filing level take more than 2 years at the initial filing level. Although some would argue that a collapse has already occurred because it's taking 12 to 19 months for a regular claim at the initial filing level for disability benefits. I personally feel like, who's somebody who's worked and owned his law firm in this industry for almost 12 years, who's somebody who basically, worked for other firms before this firm for a while. I guess what I'm saying to you is, I remember when it was really different. I remember going all the way back to the very beginnings of the golden age of disability benefits for law firms. I remember studying as I was starting my firm in when did I start it? I think it was 2013, September 27th. Yeah, I think it was 2013, September 27th. Yeah, that's when it was. I remember the massive transition culturally that was happening right then. Like, if you want to go study something that's incredible, go study Binder and Binder and the red dotting that they were doing. Go study essentially what happened with their firm and the massive advertising and the investment group that bought them, and go study that. Just Google it. Go click it into Google and learn, because that was the official showing of when the transition was occurring. They couldn't get enough people found disabled fast enough to pay for all their mass advertising on TV. It's every commercial was Binder and Binder, Binder and Binder, Binder and Binder, So the point I'm getting at here is that the culture has changed, and the likelihood of people being found disabled is really going to become more and more restricted. And it's not easy stuff for them to say no to. There's always easier stuff for them to say no to, like, drugs, alcohol abuse, etc., tobacco abuse, things like that. It has that effect to it too. There was a time, 10 years ago, you can negotiate with the judge about the future potential of the individual to receive benefits, but not use and abuse drugs while receiving them. There was that option. Okay. But now, right, the judges are, it's a hard, if it's in the record that there was severe use and abuse, and it's an uphill battle to try and get that judge to approve that claim. It is a massive, massive uphill battle. Princess Diana did the $2 donation. Thank you. She said, I'm really worried, Walter. So here's the thing. And I know your claim, but obviously people that were found disabled way back in the day, they have one secret thing that saves their butt, which is that the rules and regulations that were created and used to adjudicate you for your benefits being one, going way back on the timeline, way back in the day, they have to use the rules and regulations that existed back then. The rules and regulations way back then, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, were way more liberal. Way more liberal. So the people who were found disabled way back that are like, well, being disabled doesn't mean that you're an invalid or da, da, da. They always come out with like some phrase about how like being disabled doesn't mean you can't have a life, right? Those people don't exist anymore. The people that are now being found disabled, they don't have a life. They don't. But the people back in the day, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they're like, being disabled doesn't mean I can't have fun. Being disabled doesn't mean I can't go to a party. Being disabled doesn't mean I can't go to a bar. Well, yeah, now you absolutely couldn't. Like, you couldn't drink alcohol. Like, you've got problems medically to the point where if you did that, you would increase your chances of having a severe emergency room visit. So the point that I'm getting at, just so you guys understand it, is this is the direction of where things are going. Okay. And so I just want you to understand, that this is something that's going on. Now, some of you will be very incredibly mean to me about making, I'm showing you all these documents, what the SSA is saying, what's actually going on, etc. Some of you will be very hateful towards me. And I've realized I had to this week actually come to the conclusion that people get angry at me because they don't know. And then some of them will just be so angry and so hateful, they'll leave the channel, they'll never come back to it. They're like, F you. How could you say this? There's no way, yada, yada. Let me put it to you this way, okay? There are more people who come right back to the channel to find out more because they want to know the direction, because they can prepare and be smart about the future that they want to have. But there's always the people that are like, I'm not worried at all. Everything's going to be amazing. Please remember, every single day, I get multiple calls from people who want to go ahead and hire me for one of those private hours to figure out how to fix the problem that has happened to them. Sometimes they're little problems. Sometimes it's just a technological glitch. Something happened. They need a brief written that basically explains what needs to be fixed, and they go from there. Sometimes it's a master cluster bleep, and I have to spend a lot of time figuring who, what, when, and where on a timeline, and then how this thing could be fixed and worked out with the SSA. But every single day, these things happen. They're not uncommon. They are very common. So as a result, I beg you to consider finding a way to save and get from, basically your county offices, your local religious institutions, your local nonprofits, any and all assistance you can in the ramp up coming for that June, July area. I don't think things are going to go badly in April. Okay. Commissioner Martin Malley said as soon as 30 days from now, you'd be seeing interruptions in your benefits. Interruptions and benefits happen every single day. But when it comes to the crush point where things are going to potentially build up and be bad, you're looking at June and July. You need to have your local community resources in order before June and July. Any way that you can save money, any way that they can pay your rent for that month, any way that they can pay your food bill for that month, any way they can give you a little extra cash, you need to have this. Now, I'm going to put one final note on this. You, I'm sure, saw the address to Congress, which was really just an address to the nation. You know that there's a trade war coming up. What happens in trade wars? Well, utilities go up, raw materials go up in price, right? Buying stuff, anything goes up in price. Now, we're not really set up right now for a trade war. Everybody's poor, and I'm not trying to make a political thing here, but we all know Biden was not an amazing astronomical president, cosmological genius when it comes to the efficiency of an amazing economy with the U.S. We know that Biden was selling lots of reserve oil to China. We know that pipelines are being canceled that should have been put in immediately. We know that basically the reserve currency has staggered and now is losing its dominance. We know that the petrodollar is not where it needs to be, and we know that farmers are pissed off. He was not a good economic president, which means we have to suck in that problem going into a trade war. So just so that everybody's aware, just so that everybody understands what's going on, okay? If there is a trade war, the way trade wars work is that the countries that have the raw materials want to sell their shit. And the countries that need the raw materials, they want to buy their shit. But if there's tariffs, that stuff goes way up in price. The moment that raw material in the beginning of the production phases, you get raw material, you work on a little bit, you work on a little bit, you work on a little bit, you create product. That product goes into another product. That product goes into another product until you finally have a car being put together. The point is, we are going into a trade war. Now, Trump could be successful with negotiating things because we do have the most massive, aggressive, badass military. And he is using this as his big stick to get all these other, world leaders in order. But we don't have the power that we used to. And if we have to fight a war on multiple fronts against places like China and Russia and things like that, if shit hits the fan, this trade war is going to become extremely expensive for the working class. It is going to become horrifically devastating to the fragile class. retired, disabled, widows, auxiliary child benefits, disabled adult children, etc. So my point is, in the next video, I'm going to be doing basically where I go over ways that you can go ahead and reach out and find things that will pay for the stuff that you normally do so that you can hold on to funds, start saving. The point that I'm trying to get to with this video is, what is your timeline? June, July, you need to have figured out what resources are available to you and what you can tap into. Because a lot of these other people that are on disability benefits or retirement benefits, they're just riding the wave. They're not focused. They're not paying attention. They're ignorant to what's going on. They're just riding the wave. Okay. They're in the feel good. You need to be in front of the feel good and realizing what's coming up. All right. Next video, I will cover those details. Give me a little bit of a break because it's 11:01 p.m. We've been rocking and rolling for an hour and 5 minutes. Also, please remember, there's only 495 likes. Let's get this up. Okay. Please remember to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Okay. Head over to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm, and throw some stars up there. You get to choose what stars you like. Of course, they get me jazzed up to go ahead and continue to push and make more videos. A real quick thank you to Borqua Mike, who did a $5 donation. He said, I'm 55 at this, and I was gridded out. Should I be worried? You're a recent grid out. And so one of the things you have to keep in mind is that a grid out is not as strong as a listing level criteria allowance. So you have to consider with a grid out, you don't want to be getting new education. You don't want to be, getting new certificates or new vocational training that would make you have capacity to have direct entry back into the work environment, because that's what kills grid out claims. April Holmes, thank you for the $5 donation. I super appreciate that. So Shadow surgery, quick update. Shadow is going to be going in April up to Georgia Specialty Hospital with a specialist surgeon who's going to look at Shadow and see if he can go ahead and work on Shadow to do the surgery for the hip replacement. As you know, Shadow is my baby, and I know I have 2 dogs and not human babies, so I understand a lot of people aren't happy with that because I'm not making human babies to work and pay for retired people. I know, I got it, but that's my baby. That's my little sugar plum. So as a result, April we go up, and then they said potentially 2 months after that is when his surgery will actually occur. And these total hip surgeries for dogs are incredibly massive and scary. So anyways, a super thank you and putting a little heart on that. Please remember, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays usually, unless I fall asleep at the desk, which happens some nights, which happened on Monday. So we went live on Tuesday. Also remember, there's the 1 hour a mini contract where you can hire me for a private session during my lunch period, and I figure out how to fix the issue that you have. That is in the contract thing below. Keep in mind, it's about 2 weeks out. We had one person pass away. We had another person basically who we fixed the problem ahead of time, so they didn't have to use their hour. So there is, one of the slots already got filled. Another slot is, he might have paid. He might have paid already. But anyways, it's usually about 2 weeks out. So anyways, I will catch you a little bit later. Please remember to focus. Please remember to save. Please remember to be prepared. I will catch you in the not too distant time. Give me about 15, 20 minutes. And then we'll go ahead and do the next video where we outline essentially how you can go ahead and prepare for what's coming up when it comes to Social Security benefits and potential losses in the amount of food / amount of money you need to successfully live on your budget. Catch you a little bit later. I'll see you soon. We'll go from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, and thank you so much. Catch you a little bit later. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.